Well, hey there, everybody. Harris's new tax proposal for 25% tax on unrealized capital gains. That has been getting a lot of traction on social media here recently. And I just kind of want to set the stage here and actually let people know of what this actually does mean, what it's actually taxing, who it's actually going to affect. And it might affect more people than you actually realize once you start realizing the unintended consequences of a tax like this. So here we go. There's going to be a couple different sources we're going to be using here. I've got Forbes as a site. I've got PolitiFact coming in. I believe I've even got taxfoundation.org that's going to be in here. So we've got quite a few. And I want to so here's like who it's going to affect, who it's not going to affect, at least, at the outset, but then we're going to talk about how it can affect a lot of other people. So Harris's new wealth tax proposal would work like this. Households with more than $100 million would pay an annual minimum tax of 25% of their combined income and unrealized capital gains. And it's like if you purchased a stock for $10 and it doubles to 20 in the first year, but you still hold it, even though you haven't sold it, that $10 gain would now be subject to this new tax. That's how it works if you're over that 100 million. Real estate would work the same way. You buy a house, a building, or some land. The increase in value over time would be taxed every single year, even though you still hold it and have never sold it. We have never had a tax on gains that are not realized, meaning they're not sold. So in that sense, this tax would be absolutely groundbreaking and in a bad way. And it's similar to something that Biden actually tried proposing, I believe, like in 2021 or so, which I was like, there's no way that this is going to go through. It was similar to this, but there's a few other nuances that this has that did not have. But in the same way, I was like, there's no way this is going to go past. I believe in my heart, I believe that this is just another let's tax the rich type of a statement. And there's nothing behind it. It's never going to go through. So apart from the policy, there are administrative issues galore with this issue. How do you go about valuing everything every year to be taxed? I mean, public company stock is pretty straightforward, but most assets could be an absolute nightmare. And who in the end gets to carry the day on the value, right? I mean, disputes about values in tax cases are legendary and very numerous. So nearly every single estate case with the IRS includes valuation disputes, often with competing experts even. And in some income tax cases, charitable contributions of non-cash assets like real estate or crypto also often end up in major valuation fights. So just imagine what the annual value statements with tax returns might look like in a world where the increase in value since last year's turns into taxes every year. Capital gains have always been singled out for lower taxes, not higher taxes. And except in the case of estate tax measured in death, it has been nearly sacred not to tax earnings that you did not receive. And so besides, what if the value spikes one year, you pay tax on it, and then it plummets the next year? You still have the now, worthless asset. It may not be worthless, but you can't sell it for as much. So why the unheard of shift to tax something before it's time? And what's arguably the scariest part of the idea is what if this opens the door to a more generalized effort by the government to tax us on something that we still own? I mean, right now, the proposal is only to use this wealth tax for the, quote, truly wealthy, not just billionaires, but also anyone with at least $100 million. But once we start down this path, as I've said in pretty much almost every single tax presentation seminar that I have ever given, it is very difficult to implement a new tax. Like it's really hard to vote a new tax in, but once a new tax is voted in, it is very easy to get that tweaked. And what do I mean by tweaked? Well, let's say this: once we've started down this path of setting the bar at $100 million. Could we some years from now face a tax like this on someone for, say, $50 million or 20 million, 10 million, 1 million, right? You get the idea. They just move the goalposts. Because like I said, it's really hard to get a new tax voted in, but it's very easy to vote a change to that tax because it's like, oh, well, we didn't put any new taxes in there. No, you just changed a tax that was already implemented and caused more people to have fewer dollars in their pockets. If a government proposal causes anyone to have fewer dollars in their pocket because more is going to the IRS, I call that a tax increase. I don't care what anybody else calls it. And so for all of you guys that are, seeing stuff come across Facebook where it's like, did you know that if your house goes up in value next year, you're going to have to pay tax on that unrealized capital gain, even if you didn't sell your house? No, if you don't have $100 million of total wealth, no, that is not you. You're not going to be in that situation. You can disregard any of those memes or anything like that you see if it says that. However, here's where the big, however, comma comes into play. Here's an example of how this actually could affect everybody, like all of us average Joes and Janes. This is how it's going to affect us. So imagine this. The argument is that the unrealized tax is only going to affect the ultra wealthy. So it's no big deal, right? That's not really the right way to look at it, because let's give you an example. Let's just use Bill Gates, right? Let's say that we've got this now 25% unrealized capital gain on people worth more than $100 million. Well, Bill Gates is worth like $132 billion, so he definitely qualifies for that. And so let's assume his unrealized tax due is about $30 billion. He would need to sell $40 billion in Microsoft shares, pay the tax on that just so he can pay the tax on the unrealized tax that he already owns on stuff that he didn't even sell. And here's what that would do. When the founder of a company starts dumping their stock, what happens to the price of that stock? It goes down. So that would probably tank Microsoft. Let's just say 12 to 15%. Let's just throw a number on there. Could be about 15%. 7 million people own Microsoft. 7 million average Joes and Janes own Microsoft. Now repeat that with Berkshire Hathaway, Google, Nvidia, Apple, Tesla, etc. Rinse and repeat with all of those. And so, that only happens, like once, like they had a gain that year. Well, no, this is annual. This is an annual thing. So they had a capital gain, they sold the stock, that tanked the stock. So maybe that year, when they actually had to pay the tax, that tanked the stock. So now the stock went down. So now that year they don't have a capital gain. But the problem with that is now they have a capital loss, and there is nowhere in this proposal that says they're going to get any kind of a write-off on that unrealized capital loss. But if there's a capital gain, they got to pay tax, but they don't get a tax break if there's a capital loss. All right. So there's one year they might get a little reprieve because they at least didn't have to pay an extra tax. But then the next year, let's say the stock price goes back up again. Well, guess what? Now they got another unrealized capital gain that they're going to have to sell a boatload of stock again and tank it the next year. So it's basically, we're going to have this whipsaw of every other year. The market it's going to go up and then it's going to go down. And you're basically just going to be retracing all of the lost money that you had from that year. So in my opinion, there is absolutely no way this is going to happen. That is going to put a damper on any future stock market gains and all of our retirement portfolios. So yes, this will still affect the middle class, but not in the way that all those Facebook memes are saying. A lot of these ideas, especially when it comes to taxes, they're not implemented in a vacuum, meaning that they're not only going to affect those that whatever administration says they're going to affect. There's going to be unintended consequences, or maybe even intended consequences. I'm not going to talk about that. And maybe there are, maybe there aren't. But those can be unintended consequences. So all I'm saying is I do not believe this is going to go through at all. The mere fact of putting something forth like this, in my opinion, I just think is another let's just tax the rich argument. That's all it is. That is all it is. And there's absolutely nothing behind it. There's absolutely no way that it's going to get passed. So that is how that's going to affect us. Like I did that example that I just gave with Microsoft. And I want everybody to understand this is not a Democrat or Republican conversation that I'm having here. This is simply an investment conversation that I'm having here. This is how this could affect us. That meme that we're all seeing going across Facebook about selling or not selling our house, but still having to pay tax on it. Yeah, that's not how it's going to affect all of us that are in the middle class. That is not it. It's going to affect us based on the stock prices if all these billionaires are going to have to be selling boatloads of stock in order to pay for all the unrealized capital gain. So that is why this is not going to go through. And so if anybody else has any other questions, about this, just reach out to us. Like if you're concerned this might affect your portfolios, should Harris and Walz get into office, because they are the ones that would implement this if they got in there, and if it did pass. But I believe also they would need not only a Harris-Walz presidency, but they're also going to need a Democratic House and Senate as well to get this passed. And so that's another reason that I don't think this is going to be able to go through. There's far too many people that this would affect, and far too many people even in Congress I think that this might actually affect. So that's where I stand on that. Horrible idea. Do not want that to affect, because I care about my clients. And if we tank the portfolios because the stock prices are going to go down because of a tax law that was implemented, yeah, I'm not going to be for that. I am definitely against that. So that's how we have that. There are quite a few other tax proposals on both sides, Trump and Harris, and I might go through some of those in the future, but I wanted to get this one out there because I've seen a ton of traction in social media and misunderstanding of how this actually works. So I just wanted to get that out there. So that's it. Again, reach out. There should be links all over the place to find us. MillerRetirementGroup.com is our website. You can get 15 minutes with us there. There's always a link to get a 15-minute phone call with us through this podcast. So that's it, guys. Enjoy. Try not to yell at too many people on social media up through November. And I look forward to seeing all of you at our client events that we have still throughout the rest of this year. We're going to have our normal Thanksgiving one where we give away a pie. And then we're going to have our theater event coming in December as well. So those are usually two of our clients' favorite ones to attend. So we look forward to seeing all of you out there for that and celebrating the holiday season. And for those of you that are actually watching this on video right now and you think that all of a sudden my beard just absolutely blew up, well, you're partially right. It kind of has. It's probably quite a bit longer than the last time that I did one of these. And it's starting to get a little harder to maintain. It's getting a little unruly. But in November of this year, my father turns 75. And what he wanted to do for his 75th birthday was have an elk hunt. And so we're going to be up in northwestern Colorado in November. And apparently, I guess the shack that we ended up getting doesn't have any heating. And it's like, what were we doing? We're definitely going to be roughing it. So I'm getting this so that I can keep a little bit more warmth, because I don't have any hair up on the top of the head. So I figured I'd grow it on the bottom of the head. Maybe if I get it long enough, I'll just wrap it around on the top of the head and stay warmer. I don't know. But that's it. So enough talk about my beard, and let's just let you guys go. Always trying to bring you information to empower y'all to live the retirement you deserve. Take care.